Good evening, welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening. There's breaking news tonight, and Celtic have made an announcement. Let's just change the screen and go straight onto the Celtic website. I'm quite shocked, actually. I'm really shocked, to be honest. Celtic Football Club can confirm that the football manager Brendan Rodgers has today tendered his resignation. It's been accepted by the club, and Brendan will leave the role with immediate effect. The club appreciates Brendan's contribution to Celtic during his 2-year very successful periods at the club. Brendan leaves Celtic with the thanks for his role he has played during a period of continued success for the club, and we wish him well further success in the future. The process to appoint a new manager is underway. The club will update supporters further on this as soon as possible. We are pleased. This is unbelievable. We are pleased that during the interim period, former Celtic manager Martin O'Neill and former player Sean Maloney have agreed to take charge of the first team matters. Further details will be confirmed shortly. That's the big, massive Celtic news tonight. And it's ironic because I've had Martin O'Neill up here for over a week now. Martin O'Neill looking over the club, looking over my shoulder, and tell me what you think in the comments. I will just jump back onto that screen. I mean, it is news that I don't think a lot of Celtic fans really believed would happen. It's news that's kind of came as a shock tonight. It's obviously something that's been playing out during the day. Celtic released it just around about 20 minutes ago. And tell me what you feel. Kennedy must be away. Well, Kennedy must be away also. Yes, this is the real Celtic website. Is Kennedy away too? It is unbelievable. Glad he's gone. Move on. Get on with it. It's the current board. Do you know, the one thing that we have to remember, it's the current board that caused this issue with Brendan Rodgers. It's the current board who put Brendan Rodgers in this predicament with the lack of players coming forward. And the board are getting a get out of jail free card. It's weird that we were talking about it this morning. We were talking about it. Why isn't the AGM being announced? What is the hold up? Is there things going on in the background? Well, there obviously was. There obviously has been things going on in the background at Celtic, and I think it's one of those. Are we glad he's gone, or are we shocked that Brendan Rodgers has? Let me just turn this down because I can hear myself. Are we shocked that Brendan Rodgers has decided to leave at this time? He always says that he would never walk out on Celtic, and that's what the now ex-Celtic manager, he is no longer the Celtic manager. He has resigned. Martin O'Neill is going to be transparent. Brendan wasn't, is one of the comments. Let's just jump back in. The board achieved what they've been trying to do since the start of the season, get rid of Brendan Rodgers. There's a bit of me that's happy that Martin O'Neill's coming back, because I have had Martin O'Neill on the background for about a week now. There's a bit of me that's kind of happy with that, and it's not a time that I'm never happy when a Celtic manager is relieved of his duties, because I don't think that it generally means that we're going in a bad way. Can we get the good bounce effect for the game this weekend? I mean, there was some good news coming out of Celtic today. Good news that Alistair Johnston and Kelechi Iheanacho were going to be out for a matter of weeks rather than months. I did say to someone today, is that long enough for Brendan Rodgers to stay in position? I feared going into the game this weekend, at least we have a chance against them, Martin, as a club legend, we can only hope that this stint doesn't tarnish everything he did for us. Brendan did have to go, unfortunately. I'm kind of with you with that one, James. I am with it. Myself, I was starting to lose everything when it comes to Brendan. I wasn't convinced by him. He was a man that, saying that he had the 29 games, was he asking to be sacked? The club were obviously in a position where they thought, no, we're not going to sack you, we're not going to give you the money. Maybe there was an agreement came today, but they said that, look, he's tendered his resignation. We'll just go over the statement again for the latecomers on. Celtic Football Club can confirm that the football manager Brendan Rodgers has today tendered his resignation. The club accepted that Brendan will leave his role with immediate effect. The club appreciates Brendan's contribution to Celtic during his 2 very successful periods at the club. So they are taking acknowledgement to that he was successful the first time. Brendan leaves with their thanks for the role he has played during a period of continued success for the club, and we wish him further success in the future. The process to appoint a new manager is underway, and the club will update supporters. In interim, former manager Martin O'Neill and former player Sean Maloney. I did say that Sean Maloney's back at Celtic for a reason. It was way over his pay grade. And you've got to remember that Sean Maloney was given his chance by Martin O'Neill. It's amazing to think that all these years later that Martin O'Neill was coming back to Celtic as an interim coach. Will he be here for a matter of months? Will he be here till the end of the season? And who will Celtic get in? The chance for a new manager. What if Desmond is saying is accurate? I have no idea what Desmond's saying, Connor. Can you tell me what Desmond's saying? Here we go for 20 in a row. Kieran says, are you joking me? Yeah, it's real. It's on the Celtic website. He must have known for a while that Sunday was his last game. No way was that sudden, surely. I think, Michelle, thanks for giving me the heads up on the breaking news tonight. I think that it's... there must have been talk within inside Celtic Park that rather than get sacked, he must have known that if he lost the game, if he lost any points against Falkirk, if he dropped anything against Falkirk, it would put him in a really difficult position. If he lost the game against... Now, there's another way to look at it. He's maybe taken the high... He's maybe said... Do you know, we were talking about it in the live earlier. Should Brendan Rodgers have walked in the summer when it was becoming apparent that the transfer window was a complete disaster? And maybe he's said, I can't take Celtic any further forward. You've killed everything. And rather than kill my reputation with the fans, although a lot of people will say that his reputation has gone so far, and rather than dissolve anything that's going on with the way that Desmond just posted on Celtic FC2, just smashed Rodgers under a bus. Did he? I'll need to just give me 2 seconds and we'll check that out. Thanks for the super chats, mate. It's unbelievable, the breaking news tonight. I don't think anyone expected the Celtic manager to resign tonight. Of all, do you know, there was still the chat earlier on was, can Celtic still win the title? And all the chat was, yeah, it can. Statement from Dermot Desmond. There is a statement from Dermot Desmond which was released 17 minutes ago also, so there's more breaking news coming out of Celtic. This also is on the Celtic website. This is going to be interesting. Brendan Rodgers today tendered his resignation as the manager of Celtic Football Club. I want to acknowledge Brendan's contribution across his 2 spells as manager. This is unusual because this guy never speaks. He never speaks at all. But today he's decided to put out a statement, even though he's not the owner of Celtic, he's just the majority shareholder. I want to acknowledge I want to acknowledge Brendan's contribution across his 2 spells as manager, during which he helped deliver success that forms part of the club's modern history. However, I must also express my disappointment in the way that the past several months have unfolded. When we brought Brendan back to Celtic 2 years ago, it was done with complete trust and belief in his ability to lead the club into a new era of sustained success. Unfortunately, his conduct and communication in recent months have not reflected that trust. Wow. That is unbelievable. This is massive. Share this out with your friends. Get everybody on the live tonight. We need to talk about this. In June, both Michael Nicholson and I expressed to Brendan that we were keen to offer him a new contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would need to think about it and yet revert. Yet in subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied that the club had made no commitment to an offer to offer him a contract. This was simply untrue. Wow. So Brendan Rodgers was offered a contract by Celtic. What the has Brendan Rodgers been doing? Wow. This is deeper than what we ever thought before. We met with Brendan regularly, including December last year and at the start of the summer, with regular dialogue to discuss and agree our collective strategies and priorities and approach. Every player signed, every player sold during his tenure was done with Brendan's full knowledge, approval and endorsement. Any insinuation otherwise is false. Wow. Later, his public statements about transfers and the club's operations came entirely out of the blue. At no point prior to those remarks had he raised any such concerns with me, Dermot Desmond, Michael, or any member of the board executive team. In reality, he was given the final say over all football matters and was consistently backed in the recruitment process, including record investment he personally identified and approved. When his comments were made public, I sought to address them directly. Brendan and I met over 3 or 4 hours at his home in Scotland to discuss the issue. Despite ample opportunity, he was unable to identify a single instance where the club had obstructed or failed to support him. The facts did not match his public narrative. Regrettably, his words and his actions have been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They've contributed to a toxic atmosphere around the club, fueled by hostility towards members of the executive. Wait a minute. I've got to take this with a pinch of salt. We're getting played by both sides here. I've just said that the Celtic PLC will use this to their advantage, and I believe this is true. Do we believe the board? Do we believe this statement? There has to be some truth in it. Every board member and executive team are deeply passionate about Celtic and act at all times with professionalism, integrity and shared desire for success. What failed recently was not due to the structure or model, but to one individual's desire for self-preservation at the expense of others. Celtic's structure, where the manager oversees football, the chief executive manages operation, and the board provide oversight, has served the club with great success for more than 2 decades. We all share the same ambition. This is unbelievable. To ensure Celtic's continued success domestically and further achieve progress in Europe. Every pound generated by the club is reinvested towards the goals of continuous improvement of Celtic Football Club. Continuous improvement in Japanese is Kaizen. Will Dyson come back and make the difference this weekend? It is the great Celtic is greater than any one person. Our focus is now on restoring harmony, strengthening the squad and continuing a club worthy of the value and traditions of the supporters, Dermot Desmond. A statement by Dermot. This is unbelievable. This has thrown the whole narrative that we've been expecting and exploring and believing over the last couple of months. It's thrown everything. It's wow. The transfer window was the worst ever. No way Brendan approved that. The board have already fucked up. They're running for cover. He does have a point. We brought in players that Brendan hasn't played but kept playing his pals. Quick enough to dig folk out yesterday for wanting Rodgers sacked. Now you're doing a video on it. He's resigned. Daz, what do you expect? Of course you do a video. It's Celtic news. The whole point of your comment was. Is this for real that Brendan Rodgers left? Yes, it is for real that Brendan Rodgers has left. I don't believe anything they say. Why would they say it now and not while Brendan was outed? Maybe this is the war of attrition that's going on, and Martin O'Neill's been brought in to steady the ship. I did say a couple of weeks ago that maybe it's a Martin O'Neill type person. All his false prophecies and promises. Smoke and mirrors, in my opinion. Yeah, it is. I think we should take this statement with a big pinch of salt. Brendan says we need to prepare better for qualifiers. It's interesting that flinging Brendan under the bunch with a bullshit statement to deflect the blame for the board. Fuck them. I think that this is what this is. I mean, Dermot Desmond has never put out a statement. I couldn't tell you the last time that he put out a statement when it comes to Celtic, anything to do with Celtic. It's a weird one completely. It's unbelievable that we've lost the manager on this week. There's obviously been discussions going on after the game at the weekend. Today. I mean, it was only yesterday. It was an unbelievable... The turnaround has been unbelievable. It must have happened this morning. There has obviously been conversations this morning. I'm surprised that nothing has leaked out before it had tonight. There was a story kind of leaked in the Scotsman. They were saying that Martin O'Neill was being readied to bring back to Celtic, and it was a kind of was it a statement because of we've got a big game this week? But no, it was completely true. But what should we take from this statement that was put out by Celtic? It has been signed by Dermot Desmond. When Celtic put out a statement, normally they put out these statements and they don't have a signatory to it. The board were asked about this, is why are statements put out and there is no name on the statement, and they said that that's normal when you do stuff for the press. The fact that Dermot Desmond has pinned his stamp to this, there has to be some truth to it. Yes, there is a big chance that the board are trying to deflect from themselves so that they can take the heat off themselves going into the AGM. Celtic have still to release the date of the AGM. That will be released in the coming days. Are Celtic hoping to get a new manager in place before the AGM? I mean, that would be a good time to do it, but it's a really important time for the club. You know, we've got a semi-final this weekend at Hampden, chance to get to a final. It would just be like Martin O'Neill to come in and win the final for Celtic. Martin O'Neill will revert to a 3-5-2. Do Celtic have the players? This is the big question. Rodgers should have resigned in the summer and then called the board out, not string us along. He's never been so string us along that he's never been so motivated. Yeah, square sausage Mick. I mean, he's been saying that for the last couple of days. You've now got to look at the historical facts that we currently have. There was the article that went out from the Sun newspaper. There's now going to be speculation that was actually released by Brendan. Could Brendan have put that story out to get himself the sack? It's a very damning indictment of Brendan Rodgers by Dermot Desmond. A very, very damning indictment. We'll go over what Dermot Desmond said again. I want to acknowledge Brendan's contribution across his 2 spells as manager, during which he helped deliver success that forms part of the club's modern history. However, I must also express my deep disappointment at the way the past several months have unfolded. When we brought Brendan back to Celtic 2 years ago, it was done with the complete trust and belief in his ability to lead the club into a new era of sustained success. Unfortunately, his conduct and communication in recent months have not reflected that trust. In June, both Michael Nicholson and myself expressed to Brendan that we were keen to offer him a contract extension. Now, here comes the small print. They say they were keen to offer him a contract extension. Brendan Rodgers said there was no contract extension offered. So there was nothing spoke about financially. They wanted to offer him the contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would need to think about it. Yet subsequently in the press conferences, Brendan implied that there was no commitment to offer him a contract. There was no commitment to offer him. This is where it gets a bit thing by Celtic. I mean, on one hand, they're saying that we spoke to Brendan and we spoke about the desire to offer him a contract. Brendan Rodgers said there was no contract offered. This is all... I mean, people will rip this to bits. And Brendan implied that the club made no commitment to offer him a contract. That was simply untrue. Well, you either offer someone a contract or you don't offer them. You can talk about wanting to offer a contract, but unless it's actually been offered, there lies the small print. And if it's unbelievable, we're watching Celtic at war with a manager. Never when there's been a manager dismissed from Celtic has there been such an explosive article, press release put out by Celtic. Regrettably, his words and actions have since been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They contributed to a toxic atmosphere around the club and fueled hostility towards members of the executive team and the board. Some of that abuse directed at them and their families has been entirely unwarranted and unacceptable. You're not getting rid of this board soon. The Sack the Board campaign it's going to take an interesting turn. It will be interesting to see the way the team's set up next week. It will be interesting to see the way that the team's set up on... I mean, Martin O'Neill's obviously coming in tomorrow morning to work with the players, as is Sean Maloney. Martin O'Neill with his vast experience. Martin O'Neill with a completely different style of play. You know, this, to me, the conversation must have took place between Dermot. He's the only man that could bring in Martin O'Neill today. He did it the first time round. He picked up the phone to Martin O'Neill and he got Martin O'Neill to Celtic. And this has got the whole... For Martin O'Neill to come back in an interim basis, I've got to admit, this is Dermot Desmond at work. There's no one else. No one within Celtic could bring back Martin O'Neill. It just would never happen. Never happen. And let's go back to we are pleased that during this interim period, former Celtic manager Martin O'Neill and former Celtic player Sean Maloney have agreed to take charge of the Celtic first team matters. What does it say about John Kennedy? What does it say about Gavin Strachan? What is the situation with them? Because let's face it, they have been in and around the first team for a long time. Will there be more changes? What a time to be a Celtic fan. I didn't expect it to be such a busy news week the way that we're having. That's for sure. I think that we can all agree that this has taken everyone by surprise. Brendan's fault, 11 and 13 trophies, that's mental. Bet he goes to West. I don't care where he goes to now. It's in Brendan Rodgers in the fans. You watch Maloney get the job permanently. The board will parade around like he's a great manager. He should be nowhere near the club. He's not a motivator, Maloney. Blockbuster statement. It is. It's two blockbuster statements by Celtic. Is it one to deflect from the board? Is it just to deflect from the ongoing matters with the Celtic fans and the board? It now gives the Celtic board a finger to point at. I did say that this would happen if Brendan Rodgers was to be sacked. They would all fingers would point at Brendan and say it's his fault, and it's playing out the way that I hoped it hadn't, and it wasn't going to. But I did say that Brendan Rodgers had lost the dressing room. Lennon Sutton knew on Sunday this was coming. Who the hell can believe anything the board says? They had a chance to say all this when the fans demanded a meeting, and they sat with them and they just shrugged their shoulders, saying they know nothing. Bullshit, says Michelle. Paul Baird says, I didn't believe a single word Brendan Rodgers has been saying all season. Well back, Martin. Hail. Yeah, welcome back, Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill. There's a bittersweet moment in tonight's news. There's very much a bittersweet moment in the breaking news tonight, because whilst we have lost an unbelievable manager and over his two spells at Celtic, you cannot deny that he's not been successful. There's something toxic within the club, but I do believe that Martin O'Neill knows how to win the league. You know, and for Hearts, we will be champions. Just remember 1985. History repeats itself. History can repeat itself, and Martin O'Neill to go on and win the league for Celtic would be absolutely phenomenal, and it would put shockwaves around Europe. But Lennon's the firm's man. No, don't say that. Well done, Brendan says. Yeah, I mean, we should give Brendan. Let's just see if Brendan makes any statements in the coming days, or whether he has signed any documentation like he did the last time. When he left Celtic before, he had a certain amount of documentation that was signed that did not allow him to talk about what had went on. Maybe Brendan Rodgers, as well as leaving the club, maybe he had meetings with said executives today, and he said, well, offer me the right money and I'll offer my resignation. Because I don't believe that Brendan Rodgers will walk away for £1.5 million between now and the end of the season. But then again, it's only money to him, isn't it? He's maybe now jumped on the first plane and he's out the country on his way to Palma, Mallorca. Deflecting the board's incompetence, is that Dermot Desmond has dug himself a huge hole. This lies no way Brendan sells our best players and not replace them. They're making Rangers a scapegoat with their fuckwittery. I think so. It is bad news if they are. But Martin O'Neill, oh great, can't wait to see the old 2 minutes. Daily Record has blown it up. What are they saying about it? The club are bigger than the board or Rodgers. Best thing that could have happened. We know why he slated our players. So we'll see the famous O'Neill 3-5-2. Do we have the players to play a 3-5-2? In reality, do we have two strikers capable at this current moment? Johnny Kenny, Shin Yamada, that's what we're going into the semi-final with at the weekend. Do we have backup to them? Well, let's hope that Dies and Maida. And I did say this evening, wouldn't it be a surprise if all of a sudden, the painkillers have worked, my back's fine. Let's go. Maybe there is some truth. We'll always mind Brendan for the success. Hail Brendan. Good on you for leaving a good record. Signs have been there for months. Post-Cup final has been very poor. Huns will smell blood dreading Sunday. I don't think so. I think that you sometimes get the bounce back from a new manager coming in. I mean, they got it the game at the weekend. They didn't get it in Europe. This gives Martin O'Neill a game on Wednesday night. Will this now fill out Celtic Park on Wednesday night? Because Martin O'Neill will be back in the dugout for Celtic. Unbelievable to be saying that. I did want Martin O'Neill in a higher position at Celtic. I thought that bringing in Martin as maybe bringing him in as chairman or something, been getting rid of Lawwell would help, go between the board and the fans. But I'm absolutely, it's unbelievable that they've went down the road of bringing Martin O'Neill back. Eddie says that he's gutted for Brendan. Now Brendan is gone, the board need to follow one by one. That will never happen. Bring on Brendan Rodgers' interview with the Sun this week. Now, if that happens, we know that it's Brendan Rodgers that leaked the story to the Sun. If this is true from Dermot Desmond, elsewhere said person would be sacked. A statement is pish, and Lemon's comments on Sunday sound more like party line stuff. Dermot Desmond is BS to cover the board. Yeah, I think so, isn't it? Looking forward to hearing Brendan Rodgers' side of this. Will you, though? Get rid of the coaching staff. Well, it's brilliant news tonight, says Paul Bairds, ahead of Brendan's out of Celtic. The board done Brendan dirty in the transfer window. It's a fresh start. Is it a fresh start though, Connor? Because a lot of Celtic fans want the board gone. This statement by Dermot Desmond, I mean, the big one for me is this statement here. In June, both Michael Nicholson and I expressed to Brendan that we were keen to offer him a contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would need to think about it and revert. Yet in the subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied that the club made no commitment to an offer of a contract, which is simply untrue. Smoke and mirrors. Dermot just signed it, he didn't write it. It's this dysfunctional boards. Surely he would have to read the statement. Kieran, definitely. Get in touch. Definitely. It's been covered. The players probably knew it. Did the players know it? Very civic statement by Celtic. It's unbelievable that the board have put out such a statement. I think that throwing the manager under the bus is one thing. It's great to see Martin O'Neill back. Good old 3-5-2. Can Celtic progress from this? Can we save our season? Will there be an SOS? Will Celtic keep Martin O'Neill to the end of the season? There's lots of questions now to be answered. Will Celtic spend money in the next transfer window to make sure that we have a team enough that can push on the second half of the season? Dermot Desmond will be at the AGM. I don't think so. I think he will have to be. If it's signed at Real Baz, yeah, he has to have read it. It can't just go with his signature. They're asking Martin to make a steak dinner out of plate of mince. Rodgers had enough of the smoke and mirrors from this board being blinkered. Good luck, Martin. Who do you think would fill the manager's spot? That's a conversation for tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting one. We're going to be live quite a lot tomorrow. Is this news? You're down in Torremolinos, Kieran. I'll be done now. Yeah. Brendan needed to go, says Mike Powers. Players were clearly unmotivated, but the statement is utter garbage. Yeah, I think so as well. End of the day, he's walked out again. No legacy left, says Connor. But like Connor said, Desmond just posted on Celtic too. Smash Rodgers under the bus. Is this Celtic throwing Brendan Rodgers under the bus to save their soul, save themselves? He's in a Honda Civic en route to West Ham. I think that the writing was on the wall, wasn't it? When you start making statements like they've set me out in a Honda Civic. Stephen says he's let us down again, asshole. Stephen, if he'd dropped points on Wednesday, if he'd lost on Sunday, fans would be chasing him out the door. There seems to be going by the Celtic statements tonight, and I'm surprised that none of this has been leaked until 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, nearly. I'm surprised that none of this was leaked during the day, especially from Celtic, because, I mean, it's massive. It's completely massive. There must have been conversations. I mean, Brendan Rodgers mustn't have been at training today. Surprised nothing got out of that. He must have been called into Celtic Park at some point today. I mean, there's two questions. Did Brendan Rodgers take training this morning? Did the backroom staff take training? What was Sean Maloney's part in all this? I did say that Sean Maloney was way above his pay grade, being in the position he was in. Will he, now that he is assistant manager to Martin O'Neill at Celtic, will he revert back to... Are we about to see Sean Maloney as the assistant manager for Celtic going forward? And is Martin O'Neill now in the caretaker position until someone of a higher calibre comes into Celtic in the summer? Don't know. Brendan Rodgers' missus used to work for the Sun. I have no idea. This statement has just confirmed my thoughts. Ego. Time to back the team now, people. Yeah, I think that we need to back the team more than anything, and especially on Wednesday night. Obviously, on this weekend, there is no ultras at Hampden. No ultras at all at Hampden Park. The Celtic fans will have Martin O'Neill in the dugout. They basically blame Brendan. Yeah, they did that. Desmond's just ended Rodgers' career. That is one way to look at it, isn't it? But then again, it could be just a war of words with Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. I mean, I'm looking at it as a war of words because Brendan Rodgers allowing Celtic to sell Kyogo Furuhashi and not bring in someone else. Has Rodgers signed a non-disclosure? Well, if he's resigned, you would say no. But if there was any payoff, there has to have been some negotiations today. within the conversation of the way forward. And if within the talks that happened today, Brendan Rodgers said, well, tell you what, pay off my contract and I'll resign, or pay me the next 3 months and I'll resign today. Board event, fine. Signed off. Can we pay off Brendan? Dermot, can we pay him off? Yep, fine. But he's a fucking wanker. Right, there you go. Paycheck gone. Get out the fucking door. Your name's not Dan. You're not getting in. So we'll find that out. We'll find that out. 3-5-2, but Celtic have no strikers. Exactly. Brendan Rodgers has just proved he hasn't the bottle for a fight. Come on, he would have been chased out the door. Bringing Ange back? No, I don't think it would bring an Ange back. Baz, if you scroll back a few months ago, I told you it was happening. Maloney into Celtic, geared up as manager. I don't think Sean Maloney is manager material at Celtic. Definitely not. He's not a motivator at all. Bringing him in on a part-time basis with Martin O'Neill could be again. I think, God, we've just appointed a dinosaur who this morning barked Hearts to win the league. Dermot, your hit job there is only strength and resolve, not another penny. Yeah, worried about how this will affect for the rest of the season. Who really cares? He's cowardly saying anything, Chancellor. This old guard feeling is hopeless. Yeah, going backwards. I don't think that saying that Martin O'Neill's a dinosaur is helpful in the current moment. I think that we need to really come together. The board have taken the sack the board chance the wrong way. Lol. Yeah, they have, haven't they? Protests mean if all the board are still in charge. Yeah, at the end of the day, we can protest all we want. The board have got the upper hand. I said that this could potentially happen. Celtic could sack Brendan Rodgers if results kept going the wrong way, and then they could pull out the it's Brendan Rodgers card, and that seems to be what they're doing tonight. O'Neill here to steady the ship for a few months, that's all, I think so. But then who do we get in as manager? That'll be the conversation for tomorrow. It's a massive conversation to take part over the next few days. Who will Celtic get in as manager? Who will they offer the job to? What is the way forward for Celtic Football Club? It's unbelievable that from where we sat 4 years ago, when we thought it was a new day, it was a new dawn, when the manager was relieved of his duties after the ill-fated 10 in a row, and in come a new CEO, a new manager, and they all spoke about change at Celtic. They spoke about going forward, making us a statement within a European context and making us better and unstoppable. That lasted a few months when Dominic Mackay was relieved of, he left for another job apparently, because let's face it, he wasn't a Lawwell man. Lawwell's right-hand man then gets the job. Dermot Desmond obviously feels at Celtic that we need someone there at the club to steady the ship. And that's all that this is. It's a case of bringing someone in to completely steady the ship going forward, because Martin O'Neill was not the long-term answer. Celtic bringing in Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, it's not ideal, but who would you rather have? There's no one that's available at the moment. Ange Postecoglou was never going to be a realistic option. There's Ange in now. I don't think that Ange is a realistic option. Ange plays 4-3-3. That's not the answer that Celtic need just now. Celtic are about to face a team this weekend that are going to play 3-5-2. Does that have any bearing on the fact that we've brought in a manager that plays 3-5-2? A lot of people saying bring in Muscat, bring in Ange. I wonder what Brendan will come out and say. It depends if he's signed in. I'll go for the Bobo Glint manager. The thing is if Celtic are going to go for a manager in mid-season, they're going to have to pay big bucks to get him. Will Celtic finance the deal to bring in a big name manager in the middle of the season? I don't think so. I think that it will be interesting to see. Arne Slot might be available soon. So he said 150% he was going to stay here. So he was sacked but agreed to resign. This stinks. It does, doesn't it? Why are people saying Muscat? The cunt's a mutant. Bottled it the third season, bottled it domestically. I don't think he bottled it, but you've got to say that there is ill feeling. I've been saying for ages that Maloney wasn't brought in for nothing. Yeah, I think so. O'Neill will command instant respect. Is that enough though? Is that enough to bring in respect? Will he get the players moving? Will he get the fast attacking football? And let's not deflect away from the ongoing situation that we have with the Celtic board. I mean, the Celtic boards, and especially Dermot Desmond, is backing the board 150% here. With this statement from him tonight, statement from Dermot Desmond to the Celtic supporters. Do you know, this isn't a statement to the media. This is a statement from Dermot Desmond to the supporters. This is him trying to appease what's going on and completely finger point to Brendan Rodgers and say he's the fucker that's to blame for this summer. How much of that is true? Well, not at all, because let's not forget some truths from the summer. Yang was sold to Birmingham. He travelled down to Birmingham. He passed his medical. He waited on Celtic making phone calls or answering the phone to Birmingham. Birmingham had been on the phone and said, we need Michael Nicholson to sign this document for us to then send Celtic £3 million. And Michael Nicholson was saying, I'm too busy. His PA was saying that he was too busy. I don't believe everything that's coming out of Celtic tonight. I don't believe every single word of it. Yes, there has to be some truth in it, but I think that the board have got to get out of jail free for this one, and they will use this to their advantage over the next couple of months to try and smooth the way with the fans. The fact that this statement has been put out by Desmond says a lot, and he is trying to steady the ship, it could be said. Brendan spent 20 million on duds, for goodness sake. Can't wait for 18 minutes the subs to go. I'm going to jump through some of these comments. Big transfer window in January. It's a massive transfer window in January just now. It's a huge transfer window, but who then comes into Celtic? Do we leave that transfer window to Martin O'Neill? Do we leave that transfer window to a brand new manager? You want to get a manager, if a manager is going to come in and he is going to be the one who's picking players for the next transfer window, you need to get him in now. You need to get him in to assess the squad. And don't take the word of John Kennedy for it. Don't take the word of Gavin Strachan. Hopefully that these two people will be relieved of their duty as well. And maybe they will have stepped down. I don't know. You don't know what's going on. It'll be interesting over the next couple of days to find out exactly what is happening at Celtic Football Club, because as it stands just now, no one believes what the board is saying. No one in particular believes this version of events. You know, they can come out. We are pleased that during the interim period, former Celtic manager Martin O'Neill and former Celtic player Sean Maloney have agreed to take charge of the first team matters. That surely means that the backroom staff have gone. So if that is the case, they've walked with Brendan. They've walked out with Brendan because they don't believe the board either, or they knew that the board, if the board are pointing the fingers at Brendan, and if the other backroom staff have left, it then puts what the statement of Celtic, it then puts that in doubt. As Kennedy went with them, we're unsure of that. That will be released in the next couple of days. All eyes will be on training to see if Celtic release any footage of the Lennoxtown Unfiltered over the next new days. I think the new manager will be in before January. Martin O'Neill just caretaker until then. You would hope that he's in well before the transfer window, and that Martin O'Neill passes over a dossier of players and positions that we need to bring into the club, and hopefully it's players that we've identified that can make us better, because let's face it, and hopefully it's Martin O'Neill type players, you know, Chris Sutton, John Hartson, Neil Lennon type player in midfield. We do need something, and maybe it's a big opportunity for Celtic. Do you know, this is maybe a restart for Celtic, and this is the way that the boards will be looking at it. Dermot Desmond putting this statement out is maybe trying to hold everything that's going on with the negativity towards the board, and you know, maybe it has been, you know, maybe Cal McGregor saying, look, it has had an effect, but where's it coming from? Well, all the negativity's been coming from Brendan Rodgers, really. It's a bad window, we needed talent, we needed this. The players are sitting listening to that and going, is this prick for real? Do you know, there's two sides to a story. Bring back Bobo. He's in the nut house. Maybe Lenny and Martin. No, it won't be Lenny and Martin. Not a chance. Not a chance. We aren't doing that bad for him to resign. He's clearly been told to go, or we're getting rid of you. Yeah, I think that's more like it. I think that there's every chance that he's been told that, you know, you lose the game at the weekend, and he would hear, you know, his agent would hear the things that are going on. If the Celtic board have been talking to people externally, you know, these things get around in certain levels. Bring in Bruni, that will never happen, because Bruni will not leave his ex-Rangers player assistant coach. I mean, would you take an ex-Rangers player as an assistant coach at Celtic? He's not going to throw him under a bus. Now I wonder if Brendan Rodgers and Stanton Donovan and Murray was a message to the board about lack of signings. Well, according to the statement from Dermot Desmond, you know, Brendan was talking shite. Brendan was talking complete pish. His public statements about transfers and the club operations came entirely out of the blue. At no point prior to those remarks had he raised any such concerns with me, Dermot Desmond, Michael, or any other board or executive team. In reality, he was given the final say over football matters, and he was consistently backed in the recruitment process, including record investment in players he personally identified and approved. Now, this is now thrown Brendan completely under the bus to save the recruitment team. Paul Tisdale was brought in by Celtic to help out Brendan Rodgers. Was there a bit of clash between Paul Tisdale and Brendan Rodgers? When his comments were made public, I sought to address them directly. Brendan and I met for over 3 hours at his home in Scotland. So Dermot Desmond has been in Scotland and went to his house, Brendan's house. Despite ample opportunity, he was unable to identify a single instance where the club had obstructed or failed to support him. The facts did not match his public narrative. Regrettably, his words and his actions since have been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They've contributed to a toxic atmosphere around the club and fueled hostility towards the members of the executive team and the board. Some of the abuse directed at them and their families has been entirely unwarranted and unacceptable. There is a war of words going on with Celtic and the now ex-manager Brendan Rodgers. I'm going to run through some of these comments, and then Javi Alonso coming in. That would be good. And then we'll talk about this tomorrow morning, because this is not going away. After that statement, I'll be very surprised if Brendan does not have his lawyer all over it. If there's truth in the statement, he can't. And if he has signed anything to say that he can't talk about it, it will be interesting to see what comes out of Celtic over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, on that note, what a bloody night, and I shall see you first thing in the morning. Have a fantastic evening. It's not even a fantastic evening, is it? It's just back to Martin O'Neill stuff. Martin O'Neill. See you in the morning.